That better? All right. So we're going to keep it moving today. We're going to be conscious of everybody's time. We're going to try to get out of here, a little later than 9 a.m. I know we got a lot of busy folks, and we really appreciate you guys being here this morning. I know this is going to be an interesting session. Y'all might not be aware, but we had a really interesting election year this year, and it's going to change some of the dynamics, obviously, here around the state. But let me tell you what we got going this morning. To my right is Chairman Randy Nix. Randy represents the 69th District. He was sworn in January of 2007. He was 31 years old. And he's the chairman of ethics. He's the secretary of banks and banking, member of appropriations, economic development and tourism, education, judiciary, legislative and congressional reapportionment, and natural resources environment. So you don't really do much during session here. And Chairman Nix has been a pastor, pilot, and mentor to countless others in the assembly. He was a chaplain's assistant in the Army Reserve and captain in the Alabama Air National Guard. So he's pretty intelligent fellow. Jay Collins is District 68. He was sworn in January of 17. He's a member of the Governmental Affairs, Juvenile Justice, Public Safety, and Homeland Security Commission committees. And he's a former mayor of Villa Rica and owner of a funeral home chamber. And he's a chamber member. Matt Brass is District 28. He was sworn in January of 2017. It feels like he's been here for 100 years. He was the chairman of reapportionment and redistricting. He's vice chair of economic development and tourism, secretary of natural resources and environment, and member of education and youth committees. Chairman Brass has been a sailor in the U.S. Navy. He's not going to do the Village People song for you. And he's served as the former chief of staff for Westmoreland, who's a former U.S. Congressman from this district. So there's a lot of knowledge and experience up here, and if we have time, we'll take a few questions from the room. But what I'd like to do is go ahead and toss one out just for all of you guys to think about. We did just come out of a highly contested election year, particularly in the governor's race. How does this change in governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state? All these positions are changing, which affects the leadership in both chambers. So what can we expect coming up this next year with the change of dynamics and the relationships? How's that going to affect you guys?
Well, I think it's probably going to be something that is that we'll kind of work through as we get there. I have only been, I was elected the same time Casey Carroll was, so I've only served with one lieutenant governor. As I understand, there are just very few people in the Senate that have served with one lieutenant governor. I came in when Sonny Perdue was coming into his second term, so he did 4 years with him and 4 years with Governor Deal. I think it's going to be different in that the minority picked up some seats. They picked up a net of 11 in the House. The majority party went from 116 to 105 out of 180. And I think that they're going to be more energized than they have been. The election itself, as everybody said, was somewhat nationalized. I'm not sure that some of the people elected really represent the base of the people that they represent, but with a nationalized election, we'll have a different dynamic, I think. We saw a little bit in the biennial that they're fired up, ready to go. They're ready to get their issues out there and have them discussed. So I think that it will probably be more contentious than it has been. As you mentioned earlier, we've got a new governor, a new lieutenant governor. We do have the same speaker we've had for a number of years. I think the House has generally more stability because of that. However, we've got 12 open leadership positions, committee chair positions from the chair of rules kind of on down. So it's going to be different. I would say that this will be the most interesting, at least first part of the session of my This will be my 13th year, just due to all the change. So I don't know what to tell you is gonna happen, other than just kind of stay tuned into it's probably gonna be quite interesting.
Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I can add. I think a lot of times when new relationships begin, we kind of sit back, it's kind of a wait and see, just kind of feel each other out. And so, like Representative Nick said, we do have a new governor, new lieutenant governor, new secretary of state. So, typically during the session, it is 40 days crossover. Last year was day 28 of that. But the first really 15 to sometimes even 20 days is really, really slow anyway. So I think I think that will continue. It will start out slow, but it's just when we kind of sit back and see, who wants to make the first move, so to speak. Randy's point, the left did pick up some seats. He said, what was it, 11 in the House, picked up 2 in the Senate. And, and we did see in this election, we saw a lot of national politics kind of filtering down in. And, I think that's unfortunate. I have worked in D.C., I've seen the gridlock there, and it's typically a fight between the two parties. And unless one party is controlling everything, not a whole lot gets done. And but down here, in my first 2 years, which I'm finishing that up, we really haven't seen that dynamic. We haven't seen the two parties lock horns yet, and I think, unfortunately, I think that could be coming. But hopefully, they still got, the Dems still have good leadership. We've got good leadership on our side, and hopefully we're going to still work together and just keep the ball moving forward.
I like to say that, just kind of piggyback on what Randy said, the House had more continuity of leadership with the Speaker being there for, I think this is 9 years, the Speaker of the House. But I'm excited about what's going on in the Senate because my senator, most of your senators, Senator Mike Dooley is the majority leader over there in the Senate, which is a great thing for Carroll County. And I can't say good things about Senator Dooley and some of the things that he's trying to do for small business last year with some legislation. So I'm excited about the opportunity to have someone who is from my district, that is my senator, that's going into a leadership position over there in the Senate. And I'd like to say just a few things about this past election. I think that people want us to work together, regardless of party. And I think that you'll probably see more of that moving forward. When you get right down to it, I came from local government, which was nonpartisan. It was specific on the issue and how it helped your constituency. So when you go over to the Capitol, you do have some partisan politics there. But I think that people are longing for bipartisan support on a lot of issues because at the end of the day, I think the Democrats and Republicans agree on probably about 80% of the substance of the issue. It's that 20% there. I think compromise sometimes is looked at as a bad word, but I think that we need that. We need compromise to keep the football moving forward down the field so we can score some touchdowns for the people that we represent. I'm very excited about the fact that our governor is pro-business, being a small business owner. That is so important to have someone who identifies with the issues that we all face as small business owners. So I'm very excited about that. Learned a lot in my first 2 years and ready to roll my sleeves up and get back to work for the people of House District 68 in Westfield.
Now, Randy, that was the governor calling us that minute.
He's watching WWE.
That's right. If that's right, just tell me we're busy.
That's right. Randy, you mentioned biennial a minute ago, and I don't know that a lot of people are familiar with that process. We take 30 seconds to tell folks what it is, maybe briefly what came out of that.
I'll try. We're elected for 2-year terms. 2019, 2020 term is the biennial, but at the beginning of each of those terms, the University of Georgia Carroll Institute has a weekend session. Well, really, it's about a 3-day session where all of the House Representatives, Senators able to come together. We have policy briefings on the issues that are most likely going to be the big issues coming up. We just had that this past week. A lot of very interesting things, a lot of encouraging things. They focused a lot on education. They focused on rural development, something that we're going to be working on a lot. I think that the big thing about it is, I know my first year, it introduced me to a lot of things I did not know about, but even in my 12th year, I learned a lot, and it gives you some idea of where we're going forward. But the biennial is an opportunity for all of us to come together, get a briefing from experts on the topics of the day and what we're looking for.
So, Matt, you're co-chairing the House's Senate Study Commission on low THC and medical oil access. Can you give us a brief update on the commission's finding? This is the marijuana topic for those understanding.
Right, and it's, so the law, so everybody understands, the law in Georgia allows people with certain diagnoses to take medical marijuana oil up to 5%, which at 5% or lower, there's no high, there's no real drug involved other than, it's just, the main thing, and the thing we've seen, the diagnosis we've seen the most, but where we've seen the most improvement is with seizures. We heard stories during the testimony time that kids having 80 seizures a day. They take the oil, they're down to one a week, and so somebody tells me that's not medicine, I don't know what it is. So anyway, so HB 65 combined the House and the Senate. It was three members of the House, 3 members of the Senate, and 2 citizen appointees by the Lieutenant Governor and by the Speaker. And our task was to figure out how these patients that would give them legal right to have medicine, how they were going to actually access it, how they were going to obtain it. And with federal law, it being a Schedule I drug, marijuana being a Schedule I drug, it's not allowed to cross over state lines. And so we don't have cultivation here in this state. So what's happening is basically the patients are having to break the law to get it from whatever state you're getting it from. And the problem that I see with that is there's no regulation on that percent. We don't know what they're getting. There's just no real way for patient security there. Know what all they're taking. I mean, we heard stories of one mother. She was going by weed on the street, cooking it in her kitchen and giving it to her kid. And that's like the last thing I want. I mean, she says it's working, but still, to me, that's just a scary thought. So anyway, the update, I guess, the best thing I can do is, number one, we're gonna urge Congress to move it from Schedule I to Schedule II. That would solve all our problems here in Georgia, because then the oil can move across state line. They can order from whatever state where they do have cultivation, states such as Minnesota, Iowa, Florida. But if Congress does not, then we're gonna recommend a cultivation model. We're still working through the details of what that model is going to look like, but it would be highly regulated, and it's just again trying to make sure these patients can get it, but make sure they're getting it in a safe way.
Does this create a segue to states like Washington, Colorado, places where it's recreational?
No, and that was our opposition says that every state that they say every state that started out, that is recreation, that started out with medical, and that is true. So I started asking the question why, and what it was, and what we determined that led down that road was it was the diagnoses kept growing and growing and growing. And so also part of HB 65, what we did is we kind of took the politics out of it. And now instead of politicians deciding what diagnoses should be on this list, it now comes from the medical examining board, and they will make the recommendations, and then the legislature will still vote to add or take away a diagnosis. What I plan on also recommending in this report is that we actually give that a little more teeth. And, really, I'd like to get it as far removed from the legislature as possible and get it in medical hands, so that we don't keep adding, because again, that's how you go down the road towards recreation.
So what about other, I'm not being a dead horse here, what about other industries and ag tied to, is it hemp, and does it have for material, fabric, and there's medicinal, non-medical, non-recreational, all that, stuff that goes along with that. Was there conversation about the agricultural?
Well, these house guys may be able to speak better to this than I, but they actually had a study committee in the house side that looked at production and I think did they release that report yet?
I think they did.
Okay, I haven't actually seen it. I've been kind of buried in my own committee, but
The way I understood it was going to involve the University of Georgia to be the entity to grow and cultivate that study. So I think that committee's going to be releasing that and making that very soon. But talking about the hemp cultivation and how you can actually take the THC out of the hemp and use it as well for the oil, so that's the CBD oil.
and I believe too, we got a farm bill coming out of Congress here soon. I believe hemp's gonna be part of that farm bill as well.
I didn't mean to get too far down that road. I know there's topics with some folks. You guys have a special session called here this fall. There was a lot of discussion going in today about the jet fuel tax. Can you explain? And I've heard a lot of misinformation out in the streets that I hang out on. I don't want to tell too much here, but that's why I'm part of that first. But not true. So, can you tell us a little bit about the jet fuel tax situation and the conversations that came out about that? Anyone in particular?
I'll take a shot at it. The bottom line is that we were one of the few states that, especially the major airports, who had the tax on the jet fuel. It became a highly publicized political issue during the regular session when the Lieutenant Governor, I think, did a little bit of grandstanding on it, but I didn't say that. Essentially, since we did not take it off during the session, the governor had taken the sales tax on the jet fuel off with executive order, and that only lasted until we had another session. So, since we had a special session to deal with the issues with the hurricane, that had to come up, as I understand it, and we voted to make that permanent right there. Well, it's not permanent because I think it has to come back again with a sunset on it. Sunset provision, is it June of this year?
Yes, I believe
June of 2019. But the bottom line is it takes that sales tax off. It's called a Delta bill, but it does it for everybody that buys that brand of jet fuel, whether it be Delta, Southwest, United, Gulfstream, all of those folks get that break. And I think that was a good move. As I say, airplanes can be housed anywhere. Delta has a major commitment here, one of the largest, maybe the largest employer in Atlanta, and that was what we did. We made that. We made the governor's order essentially permanent until it sunsets, but we'll have to deal with it again in the full session.
I thought it was a good piece of legislation as a fiscal conservative. If you put just about any type of tax out there that I can vote to do away with, I'm all for it, especially given the scope and the size of that industry here in Georgia. I mean, Georgia's the 8th largest state in the nation. And I looked at it as, just a good move, physically conservative to get rid of a tax. Also, too, when you talk about economic development, in my mind, you talk about economic development through expansion and retention of existing industry. And not to say that any airline was going to move out of Georgia, but looking forward, looking down the road, if there was a tax that could be taken off, done away with, how that may attract new airlines or retain existing airlines to continue to expand and come to Georgia. So the fact that it dealt with all of the fuel, not just for a certain company, that was a motivating factor in my mind. And again, the sunset clause was put in there, and we can look at it and see if it's doing what we think it needs to do, what we thought it was going to do. We can vote to extend it. If not, we can put that back on. So I thought it was a good move to do what we did.
I mean, I don't really have anything to add, other than, number one, I represent a lot of Delta employees at Carroll County and Park Fulton. And, it's 33,000 employees in the state of Georgia. And this tax exemption is roughly 49 to 53 million, I think, estimated. A lot of that money goes back to the employees. And then the other part is it allows them to add more routes. And I think that was part of the negotiation with the governor was he wanted more routes. And one of the ones they added, I think, was that straight shot to Singapore. And there's actually economic development that goes around when you do add more routes, because now a lot of people are coming to your airport, they're staying in your hotels, and there's a lot of money that does come with that. So, but for me, personally representing all those Delta employees, it was kind of a no-brainer for me.
Well, let me shift gears back to a few more issues that might affect us locally. Those are certainly some more statewide issues, but there's not a conversation had about government, politics, and everything else without talking about health care. I know I saw Brian Dale here earlier, but we talked about certificate of need. What kind of changes do y'all see coming down the road in health care for not just for Georgia, but it could affect us in this area? We're blessed with a regional system like Tanner that's healthy, doing well, and has a lot of community support, et cetera, but there are hospitals closing all over the state. So what are we doing as Georgians to combat that, and specifically, maybe here in Western Georgia?
Well, I think where healthcare is concerned, again, we're very fortunate in our area because we have healthcare that's expanding. Tanner continues to enlarge their footprint each and every year we turn around, and we're very grateful for that. But you hear from some of the legislators in South Georgia, and you hear about hospitals on the verge of closing. They're closing. In 2018, folks, you shouldn't have to get in the car and drive an hour and a half to a hospital, especially in the 8th largest state in the nation. So, I think that the answer to some of the issues is to kind of break down the barriers there where certificate of need is concerned, to make healthcare accessible and allow for places that don't have the needs that need to be met. That there needs to be a way that the hospitals and the doctors can go in those areas and serve those patients because it's desperately needed. So, I sit on the Government Affairs Committee, and I think that'll probably be one of those topics that will come through my committee. I look forward to working with those folks over in the House to make that happen and remove some of the barriers down in the south part of Georgia where quite frankly, it should have been done a long time ago. That's an area that with the Rural Development Council and the study committee that they had going, that was one of the dire things that they addressed. So I think the certificate of need is going to have to be addressed in this next session.
Yeah, I agree. If you want to kind of get in the weeds on certificate of need, I think you could see some changes on some of the numbers that are required. Perfect example, Tanner, applied for cardiac, they applied for cardiac and were denied through certificate of need. And, they had to guarantee, I want to say around 300 cases a year, and you could only guarantee about 225-ish around, give or take. And because they couldn't hit that 300 threshold, they were denied, along with 2 other hospitals up in, I believe, Rome and maybe Cartersville or something. But anyway, so they were denied, and now, y'all, as you know, Carroll County, y'all suffer, because now you're kind of funneled into Atlanta to go get care when you've got capable doctors here, you've got, you know, as good facilities as anywhere in the state. And so I think you're gonna see some of those thresholds change. I think you'll see some changes maybe in mental health. You know, blessed right here in Carroll County with Willowbrook, which is also part Tanner. But you've also seen, you know, there's underserved areas along the you know, area of mental health all over the state. And, so we've got to allow places like Willowbrook to grow, expand, and treat the underserved. And I think another thing you're going to hear as a conversation piece is Medicaid waivers. What that allows is our hospitals to, you know, instead of spending money on parts of Medicaid that they're required to do, they're able to kind of waive it and put that money towards something else like telemedicine or something like that. And that also allows us to draw down more federal money. So that, I think those conversations are being had by people much smarter than myself, but we're starting to hear a lot more chatter on that. The governor said he's open to it. So we've got our health committees will be taking good hard looks and have been. They've been studying it over the summer, and you know, I think they certainly will be discussed.
Well, I've got some concerns about the change in the certificate of need. I've been one of those people that's very hesitant to say, well, we just do away with that. The other side of that coin, as the hospital people will tell you, the people who want to come to your community and do those services don't want to be open 24/7. They don't want to take everybody that comes to the door, as the hospitals have to. But they'll gladly take the ones that come to them that can pay and send those other folks to your hospital. So I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of negotiation to go with this. It's been talked about ever since I've been in the legislature. And I think it may be one of those contentious issues that is going to be definitely two thoughts to that. If your hospital, most of the hospitals, especially the smaller hospitals, like your local hospitals, they lose money on a lot of things that they do. The people that show up at the emergency room door, the services that they make money on, their surgeries and some of those type of things. That's the type of things that people want to come and do right next door. But then when you ask them, well, are you going to be open 24/7? You're going to have an emergency room? You know, what are you going to do? They're not doing it. If they're opening at 8, they're closing at 5 and going home. So I hope we can have a real conversation about that before we just say we're going to do away with the certificate of need and make it the Wild West where everybody just does whatever they want to, because if they do, it's going to hurt a lot of our local hospitals, in my opinion. So we'll kind of see where that goes. The broader context there is the lack of services in so many parts of the state. The Rural Development Council has been talking about this, and that leads to so many other different issues. When we had the discussion of health care at the biennial, and I don't know whether y'all were there or not, a lot of things they got into were things you don't even think about. The opioid epidemic, the addictions that are out there that are driving so many of these healthcare needs. So there's so many different facets to the healthcare issue. The fact that in so many places in the state it may be 50, 60, 100 miles to where you can have a baby. The services aren't there. I was talking to a gentleman this morning about the mental health issues. We've got to start working a little bit more on that. I'm glad to see that we're beginning to address some of those, but I've done a number of things in the education area, and we just don't have the human resources, the people qualified to do that out there to provide those services. If you've got a child in South Georgia who needs mental health counseling, or a certified counselor, some places down there, there's not one within 50 or 60 miles, and if you can find them, it's 6 months before you can get an appointment with them. So we're going to have to try to do some things to incentivize people to get into some of those areas. That's a broader concept. I think even the certificate of need, that's gonna be a discussion, but I think it's gotta be, all these other things have got to play into it too. We're fortunate we live in an area where we have most of these services, but the vast geographical area of the state, they do not have those services. So I think one of the things we've done, and I can't remember the numbers, but we've tried to incentivize some of the medical schools to bring in doctors, because the doctors that they usually stay where they do their residency, and we've tried to incentivize that to get some of those doctors who will stay in the area. So many will come and they'll train and then they'll go somewhere else. But access is going to be a critical issue to go along with that. I'm not smart enough to understand all that, but it's a much bigger issue than certificate of need and those things as well.
Yeah, and then you all mentioned, the rural development studies and things that have been done. What are some of the key pieces other than healthcare that have come out of that created that study?
Well, a huge thing for workforce development. The other thing, and here again, I hate to keep going back to this, but one of the things that kept coming up in there is the addiction element. There's so many places, and I was not on the committee, but I went to a number of them as an ad hoc member. But the business and industries in so many of these places where they do have jobs available, people can't pass the drug screen. I know up in North Georgia, I had no idea, I think it was in Tacoma that we went to, and that was a huge part of the conversation. They've got jobs waiting there, but they cannot get people to pass a drug screen to be able to take those jobs. That was big. Transportation is a big issue. We're seeing it here. You're seeing it here in Carroll County, trying to develop some type of situation. I mean, it's great if you've got a job, and if it's 10 miles away and you don't have a car and there's no way to get there, that doesn't help you a whole lot. So those are some other areas that are being looked at. The education, just the overall education system in a number of those rural areas where you've got the poor counties who don't have the tax base to bring those levels up in terms of supplements for their teachers. So there's just a huge thing that goes in there, and it exists, I think, all over the state, but it just gets multiplied the further away from Atlanta that you get in terms of positions.
The other thing that I think is very important is the high-speed internet.
Yeah,
I was about to say, nowhere else gets a little further away from the land.
Yeah.
Broadband.
That's a big one.
Knowledge is power, and you look at the fact that we live out here, even in our area, we have some places. I know up in my community around Temple, they're kind of people don't have access to the internet, high-speed internet, and that's got to be so frustrating if you're trying to locate an industry in South Georgia and don't have that access. If you're a parent of a child and you're trying to help your child with their education, I mean, there's so many barriers that are thrown up if you don't have access to something that we take for granted in a lot of places in Georgia. One of the things that I found fascinating was that my time as mayor, we looked at census blocks for population and the way that they were identifying, access to high-speed internet broadband. From what I was told was they look at a census block, and if one person in that census block had access to high-speed internet through broadband or whatever it may be, they consider that to be served. That one person in the census block, and that was just unbelievable in my mind. Most people came up with that standard. That has to change. I think the goal for the development council is going to be 80%. That's the goal that they have for those census blocks. But that's an important piece that's going to require some heavy lifting from the governor's office and from both chambers in the General Assembly to make that access available. It's going to take a lot of cooperation from EMCs throughout the state. We're very fortunate to have Carroll EMC helping lead some of that charge. And it's a cooperative effort that will take a while to come to fruition, but I think it can be done, and that will be very beneficial to generations of Georgians moving forward.
I left that out just to make sure he was paying attention.
Taxi. Yeah, in fact, you referenced the study, we've all seen them, or Carroll participated in it. Carroll tomorrow was involved, as well as the EMCs and Carroll in particular. And there's, to your point, Jay, it's not just sparse, there's whole pockets that didn't even have a red lip within our service territory, which is all on the western border. There's zero service, because they actually have to log in on the computers to do the survey. So yeah, that's a hot topic going forward for us too, and we'll be working close with you guys. So before I go into kind of a individual summary from each of you guys, are there any questions from the floor that we need to, of course, Sandra Morris, I got to finish asking before you throw your hand up. But is there any questions from the audience? And we only take a couple, because we've got to get back to our summary, but I didn't want to give you the opportunity. So Ms. Morris, you have something?
With the growing number of people over 65 in the state of Georgia, have there been any conversations about tax credits or other incentives for companies that want to supply these affordable services to take care of us?
Who wants that?
I was about to say I resemble that remark. I have not heard any discussion on that specifically. I'll kind of defer and see. Have y'all heard any specific discussion on that? It may very well play into some of the rural development because your population there tends to be older because the younger people are leaving. But I don't know of anything right now that's out there.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I know
Are
they're.
you interested in some? We vote, remember?
I think that's probably a good idea. Obviously, because the baby boomer generation is starting to go into the twilight years. I know there's substantial tax credits that are available to those companies that do development, residential development. I think there's a substantial amount of tax credit out there for those who provide housing. But as far as specific to those who provide health care and long-term care, I don't think that that's something that's been discussed, but that would be something to look at. I would obviously support that.
Yes, ma'am.
Suicide awareness is very close to my heart. I lost my nephew, Tristan, 3 years ago. And Mr. Collins, you probably see a lot of that. You see how prevalent that is in your own home. I'm just wondering, are you guys doing any research on suicide awareness programs in the schools? I know that because of the Jason Foundation, you have the law where teachers have to take online training, but I don't think it's enough. And our kids are dying. So are you doing any type of research as far as implementing mandatory suicide awareness programs?
Question is about suicide prevention.
So I was going to add, Representative Nix had a bill last year that deals with school climate, and just kind of, and I'll let Randy talk about that bill a little bit more. But I thought it was a good bill because it's bringing teachers and really the whole school aware to students' needs outside the classroom. Their mental state. Things like that. So I think that's a part of that. Randy, you talked about the bill, but
The short answer to your question is yes, very emphatic yes, that is being addressed. The mental health aspect for our children is so important. One of the things we haven't touched on is school safety. And the mental health is a huge part of that. If you see these terrible events that have occurred, I think every one of them have been known to have mental issues. And then, of course, that plays into the suicide issue as well. We're trying to, I think that the new governor has proposed a mental health counselor in every high school in the state, which would be a huge change. So often our counselors that we have now are, they're pulled in so many different directions that they don't have a chance to do this. But that is a big topic. One of the topics we had at the body we spent a lot of time talking about suicide prevention and how do we identify those people. How do we get the resources to where they're needed? How do we find out who those children are? A lot of that played back into the school safety issue. I can't remember the number that was given, but was it Fulton County we were listening to? And they were talking about their school safety, and they've got a program where the kids can use Messenger to communicate anonymously when things are going on, and they have prevented 10 or 12 very likely suicides over the last year. So it is being addressed in a lot of different ways. Just through that overall mental health. But here again, I'll go back and say what I did earlier. The resources to do that are just very, very limited. It's difficult. But it is a big problem and a growing problem. Some of the bill he mentioned, just briefly, school climate is a big issue. And school climate covers a lot of different things, but it usually is, a big part of it is communication between the students and the faculty and the administration. That becomes a part of it. Is there a trust level there? And when you have that trust level, then someone will say, okay, we know that this person's having a real problem right now. Can we get him some help? And those are the type of things we're trying to foster. But it is an important issue, and it's something I've been working on, and you work on, that goes into that big, broad area of mental health.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was very excited about, was that proposal about the mental health counselor. And you got the guidance counselors that are trying to help people decide on what college to go to, technical college, transition from high school into the workforce or into the academia world. But that mental health counselor, that'll go a long way. That's something I think has probably been long overdue. You put your money in places that in things that you treasure. And, we've got police officers for the safety, but I think those mental health counselors are going to pay off tenfold, and I was very excited to hear about that. And I look forward to supporting that package that the government is going to present.
Kurt?
Yes. Part of economic development is also dealing with crime statistics. And after I filed an open records request, I found out that the area out here has a 10 to 11% crime rate when you take the number of number of incidents reported divided by the number of people, which I got from the census. Our crime rate is now higher than Union City and Decatur, so it's just wanted to know. I saw some things in the paper, some efforts being made. I just wanted to see if you could expand on that, what's being done to improve on that.
A lot of that's going to be driven locally, but the only thought that really popped into my mind, it goes back to the drug issue, and I think that drives a lot of it. You remember when we were sitting there looking at the opioid, the highest level of drug activity in Carroll County was falling into that category. I was really shocked. The big ones in Atlanta you think of, but as you come right on down that area, my thought is they're coming right out I-20, and that's where it's coming from. The only thing that I can say that I've heard and know about specifically, the governor-elect has mentioned his desire to attack the gang problems. And I think that a lot of that is driven by the gangs. A lot of that drug activity, I think, is driven by the gangs. But other than that, I think it would probably be a question better directed to your local law enforcement. I think you'd find us to be supportive of issues related to that. Any y'all want to?
I think when you talk about the crime rate, obviously I grew up in my community where I live, and as the population grows, you get elements of society that move in that you don't necessarily desire. And you take that and couple it with the opioid crisis, and the gangs that are moving out here, and I think you're going to see some increases. I haven't seen those numbers, and so I'm not commenting too specifically on that. But I think one of the things you'll see out of our delegation, you can't necessarily say that about every delegation around the state, but we're very pro-law enforcement. And if our local officials come to us and need help, we're going to provide that to them. I think that one of the things that we have to do as a legislature is figure out a way that we can help local government raise the salary, not just for police officers, but for public safety all across the board. We ask those ladies and gentlemen who serve us every day to put their life on the line for a very small amount of money. And And so that's one of the things that I hope to be working with over the coming years, is to figure out a way to help local government raise the pay for all of the public safety officers. It's just, it's a shame that we can't continue to raise, we need to continue to raise their pay, because there are a lot of good people that are leaving law enforcement because of that.
Well, I'll add real quick too. You know, one of Governor Deal's legacies is going to be criminal justice reform, and you know, one of the things he's done is, you know, in the prisons they're going in and they're teaching them a trade, so that when they do leave prison, that they don't, you know, they don't have to go back to the only thing they know to make money. And that those types of things, they do take time. But, you know, we do have great local law enforcement around here. But again, you know, the criminal justice reform combined with now Governor Kemp, you know, doing a lot, you know, really he's got a plan to dismantle the gangs. I think with those two combined, I think we're going to see some real improvements.
Last question.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tima Humphreys, and I'm a survivor of family, domestic violence, and sexual abuse. And those adverse effects to long-term exposure to that touch on everything that we even talked about here. Suicide, crime, and these are conversations as a community and as business leaders that we need to start having in our community. The Georgia Commission on Family Violence has done a great job with the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence on putting together annual reports on fatality rates and what that looks like for our community, financially for businesses, and what that looks like for families in our community. And that's what I began to do, is educate myself. My children have chronic illness. I have a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old who have chronic illness and been in and out of the healthcare system their entire life. And then when you leave that, the post-trauma that goes along with that. So everything that we've spoken about here today is very relevant. There are coordinated community responses to family domestic violence that reduce fatalities, mental illness, and physical adverse effects from exposure. That work, they're in our state. It takes all the stakeholders and everyone in this room to sit down and to have a summit, and let's start looking at some of these models, these proven models that work. It's called a collaborative community response. And that's why I'm here. I just joined the chamber. I took my crime victims' compensation money and started a nonprofit organization because my family was impacted by this. I lost everything. I had nothing to lose. Because when I went to look for help for my family and my community and my church family, I failed to find it. And these are very, very relevant conversations that we need to have. So as we go and have our Christmas and go into 2019, I ask you to connect. Let's connect as business leaders in our community. And let's look at some of these models and these statistics. And I ask each and every one of you to go to the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence or the Georgia Commission on Family Violence and review the last 13 years of fatality reviews and look at the information that is in there and look at past every one of us. So I want to thank you, and I'd like to meet you. I know that you have some pastoral care and what that looks like to bridge the gap, to help bridge the gap between our overburdened system and those who are on the front lines of this in our community. We have one domestic violence shelter that serves 5 counties, one outside of our judicial circuit. According to Herb Cranford, we have 10 victims advocates that serve a population of, I'm saying Coweta Judicial Circuit's probably 350,000 residents. Is that accurate?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm having trouble
I would
with
say,
connection.
let me just say this, it does take a village to do this.
Yes.
These are some things we're working on. It's something I've been working on for a long time, but I would say that you're in a great community here. The Carroll County community has risen up with a lot of different things with the mental health. And a lot of it goes back to the mental health counseling. A lot of it goes to the fact that he was talking about when people are arrested, they're put in jail, they come out, they don't have anything else to do. But even on the domestic violence, that plays into the mental health. Where do these people go when they're released? Who is out there to help them? And it is a community effort. And we're trying to foster everything we can to help the communities in that.
Well, I'll just add real quick, because I know we're about out of time. Tina brings up some great points, and, you know, things like this, it does take a community, and it has to start here. It has to start at ground level. And, you time people come to us and want us to have an answer, but really, it needs to start in your local communities, and that's, you know, we went through the same thing on the opioid crisis. Carroll County was ranked 6th worst in the entire state on the opioid epidemic, just looking at all different factors. And so I got a group of stakeholders together and said, look, I'm not going to fix this from the state. We got to fix it right here. We got the right people in the room that cared about the issue, and this is the same type thing here. You know, it's got to start from the grassroots effort and trickle its way up, and then we'll figure out what we can do, you know, at the state level to help. But it really needs to start right here.
I would encourage everyone in this room, if you haven't met Tina, meet her. She lives up in my community up in Little West, and she's been a voice for those who have needed a voice for a long time. So, y'all help her, help us. And that's what I'd like to encourage y'all to do.
Well, gentlemen, we are coming up on 9 o'clock, and I've got to turn it back over to Daniel. But as we mentioned before, Senator Dugan couldn't be here last minute. His training schedule for the leadership role took him out of town. That's why I wore crazy socks to honor him. I didn't feel like time to go time, so I just did socks. And Kevin Cook was out of town on a family trip and couldn't be here with us this morning. Thank y'all so much for taking time out of your schedule. We appreciate everything y'all do for us. I think you represent us as well as anybody ever has, and we really, really appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Can we get a closing comment?
Yeah, we'll do it real quick, and we'll turn back over to Daniel.
I just want to say thank you for your interest. Thank you for allowing me to serve you in this capacity. And if you've got questions and comments, you can easily find me. I'm available by email, by phone, so look forward to continuing the conversation.
And I just want to take time to thank the chamber, Don, Daniel, and all the committees, Jay. Y'all, they're a great voice for y'all, for the business community. They keep us informed on the needs of Carroll County, and I can't thank you enough. Y'all have great representation in them, and we try to carry that representation up to the Capitol and fight for it as well. So, again, thank you.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to serve you in House District 68. This guy over here on my left is going to speak in a few minutes. Y'all all know he's a rock star when it comes to looking after us and looking after economic development and our small businesses here in West Georgia. And we're so very fortunate to have so many key people in this room. I may not be the sharpest pencil in the drawer, but I want to listen to you and I want to help you with the issue. If you have an issue with the state agency or I can help you any way at all, please reach out to me. I'm available. I have a business right here in the district. So I understand small business and the frustrations that you may have with the bureaucracy and want to help you navigate through that if I possibly can. I think there's more to being a good legislator than just passing legislation. You have to be able to represent your folks, and so I want to be the voice for you on that. Thank you.
Thank y'all for being here this morning.